Hello, everyone. If you're enjoying the discussions on this show, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Now, today's topic is going to be based on an article that was in the New York Post yesterday, January 2nd. That article discusses a sexual assault on a female correction officer on Rikers Island by an inmate in New York City custody. Now, that officer is calling for more serious punishment for inmates involved in that type of behavior. Now, I'd like to read one sentence from the article for you. And the article states that the prisoner allegedly slapped her in the rear end so hard it, quote, pulled me off my feet, end quote, said the officer. Now, in New York City Correction Department, about 48% of the correction officers are female. And since 2021, there have been about 30 sexual assaults committed on New York City correction officers. The inmate in this particular case was arrested for burglary, where he broke into an apartment of a woman. Now, pursuant to his arrest, according to the New York Post article, he stated to the police officer that he was going to rape her. In this particular case, the female officer that was sexually assaulted, this particular inmate is being charged with forcible touching, which is a misdemeanor. Now, prior to 2014, sexual assaults on correction officers were very rare. And as I stated, since 2021, there have been about 30 sexual assaults on correction officers. And if you go back a little further in time, sexual assaults on correction officers were almost non-existent. Now, I suggest that there be a change or an amendment to the laws and to the sentencing guidelines where when an inmate is convicted of a sexual assault on a correction officer, there should be a mandatory minimum sentence. In addition, that sentence should be served consecutively to any other sentences that person has. And lastly, there should not be any plea bargaining in that particular charge of sexual assault on a correction officer. Now, why have there been so many assaults on correction officers in the last several years? Well, we can't have that discussion without going back to 2014. Now, in 2014, Bill de Blasio, who was the mayor at the time, and also his last two commissioners that he appointed, they basically neglected and abandoned the correction department. And they left the correction department weak and a failure, and they left correction officers vulnerable and unable to defend themselves. And that continues to exist to this day. Secondly, the fringe politicians in New York City and some city council members, for the last 9 years, they have been demonizing and villainizing correction officers and the correction department to the point where it left a disfiguring scar on the face of this agency. And that demonization and villainization was unreasonable and unwarranted, and the department suffered public ridicule and scorn because of that. Next, the federal monitor, Steve Martin, he was appointed by the court, and as a result, he is an officer of the court. Now, Steve Martin has legal and ethical obligations to provide accurate assessments and also to provide unbiased opinions and conclusions to the court regarding the issues on Rikers Island. Now, I don't believe Steve Martin has done that. I think, in my opinion, Steve Martin has lost all credibility in the New York City Correction Department. Now, his reports have bashed correction officers and the correction department, where metaphorically it was like throwing judicial feces on the uniform of the correction officer. And that left an indelible stain on that uniform that will take decades to remove. Now, in conclusion, when adults disrespect others, many times children and other adults will learn and copy that behavior. So I would like to ask Bill de Blasio, the fringe politicians, the city council members, and the federal monitor, Steve Martin. I asked them, after years of this disrespect and condemnation of the correction department and of correction officers, are you at all surprised at the assaults on correction officers and the disrespect at correction officers by the inmate population? Are you at all surprised that that behavior occurs? Well, you shouldn't be, because they have been encouraged by your behavior. They have learned from your behavior.